Good morning, Long Beach Christian Fellowship. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning if you're online. Good morning if you are here with us. Good morning if you are driving and listening on your way. We are so glad to be here this morning together in this place, which is so special. Let's worship the Lord together.
If you're able to, could you stand with us? told you to turn it down, but now I can't hear. It's difficult when I'm not working. I can't hear myself.
Please join me for scripture reading from Isaiah 9, verses 1 through 7. Nevertheless, that time of darkness and despair will not go on forever. The land of Zebulun and Naphtali will be humbled, but there will be a time in the future when Galilee of the Gentiles, which lie along the road that runs between Jordan and the sea, will be filled with glory. Those who live in a deep darkness, a light will shine. You will enlarge the nation of Israel, and its people rejoice. They will rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest, and like warriors dividing the plunder. For you will break the yoke of slavery and lift the heavy burden from their shoulders. You will break the oppressor's rod, just as you did when you destroyed the army of Midian. Warriors in uniform, bloodstained by war, will all be burned. They will be fuel for the fire. For a child is born to us, a son is given to us. The government will rest on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His government and its peace will never end. He will rule with fairness and justice from the throne of his ancestor David for all eternity. The passionate commitment of the Lord of Heaven's armies will make this happen.
Let us pause and consider these words. Y'all may be seated. Good morning, Long Beach Christian Fellowship. I don't know if you noticed, but today is Palm Sunday. We left a few clues laying around. It looks gorgeous. Okay, so to start with, we usually do this announcement at the end, but if we do it at the end, I will forget it. So I want to say that middle school is meeting today. I remembered. Okay. And then for our, also, if you parked across the street, y'all don't park there. They will tow. You can park in front on the streets or in the parking lot. We don't want your car to get towed. I would like to call Janie Acosta up for a moment. I agree. Do you want to start? Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. We just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you so much for everybody who showed up for our special day, everybody who helped, who brought flowers, who brought food, or who just came to celebrate with us. We're beyond grateful, super humbled, and it couldn't have been more beautiful that day. So thank you so much for all of your help, love, and support. And we love you. We love you all.
It meant the world to us, y'all. Probably some people here know our personal stories and some don't. But to have the community show up for us and be our family and be that love in this room in so many ways, it meant everything. And it's changed our lives, I think. So thank you. Thanks, honey. Okay, moving right along, we are going to talk about dinner and a show. Yes. By the way, y'all, so we apologize. The projector still is not functional. We are working on it, and it will be. Again, we gave up. We joked and said we gave up this projector for Lent. We fixed it, and this one went out. So I'm going to be careful next year about my Lent joking, I think. We will fix it. But so this is a wonderful ministry that we have here at LBCF, Breaking Bread and a Show. Mr. Austin Nation, who is doing sound. Will you wave at us, Austin? If you have any questions about this ministry, he would love to talk to you about it. He is the one who organizes it. On Friday, April 25th, this ministry is going to go see God's Favorite. It looks like it's happening at the Long Beach Playhouse at 8 p.m., but don't miss dinner at Tap 24, which begins at 6. Purchase your own tickets, and if you have any questions, please reach out to Austin. His phone number is up there, but he is also sitting there in person, so go and ask him your questions in person today. Then we have Singularity. Am I saying it right? Singularity, which is a really exciting new ministry here at LBCF. This is a ministry that is being created in order to empower Christian singles to grow in their faith, build community, and live fulfilling lives while serving God and others. It's also an opportunity for the church as a structure to start putting single people forward first, in the center, right? Not that anyone is first, anyone else is last, but to really highlight singlehood and the importance of honoring, recognizing, and celebrating single people here at LBCF. Tina is one of the people who, do you want to wave at us, Tina? She's one of the people who's organizing, because she's amazing. And you can also scan this code to get more information. Is there a slide for the event that's happening this month? I'm sorry, Maggie, to put you on the spot like that. Do we have that slide? I didn't. I apologize. Do you want to give information about that? Yes. Come here. Yeah, come on up.
Thank you, Newlywed. Good morning, church family. Yes, so our very, very first event is the last Sunday of April, and you would think I know that date, huh? April 27th. Thank you so much, Barb. I appreciate that. Good looking out. So on April 27th, right after service, we're gonna head over to Cafe Padua, and in Lakewood, and it is gonna be a really good time. Let me tell you. We're going to talk about all the things that we're going to do, which is a lot of fun things you will not want to miss. And it's just for us to get to know each other and see what your interests are, what your needs are. We want to know how we can support you. And it's a super cool cafe. If you haven't been there, it's just really cool. I can't even describe it. You just have to be there and just feel the vibe. So I hope you will join us. So please feel free to speak with me or Austin or Ian, and we would love for you to join us. Thank you.
You make it sound so good, but I just got married. See how you are? Thank you, Tina. Okay, and then we have, Good Friday service. This coming Friday is Good Friday. We will have a service here. Oh my gosh, you guys. So the slides, apologies for some of the distortion. We are working through this tech issue. But Good Friday service is happening this Friday, April 18th at 7 p.m. here. So please come. It's going to be a special and profound time where we get to remember, and I don't want to say celebrate, we get to commiserate, mourn, yes, together. See you there. And then we have, elder nominations. Today is the last day to make a nomination for somebody for the elder board here at LBCF. If you've been meaning to do it and you've just been putting it off, please do it today. You can scan the code and you can do it with the Google form, or you can fill out one of the physical forms. There are some located right outside these doors and some located next to the doors in the children's hallway. Please, if the Spirit is moving you, if you have a name and you haven't submitted it yet, please submit it. We need it. We want it. Then we have, this is going to be super fun, y'all, the drug. I don't have to live like that anymore. The drag show fundraiser, which is coming up on Sunday, April 27th. After the singles event, go right from that, come back here. The doors open at 4 o'clock. It's $20. It's dinner and a show. It is family friendly. This is going to be a family-friendly, fun event for anyone at LBCF of any age to come and support the performers. But also, we're going to use that money, I believe, to help us either fix or purchase a projector for this side of the sanctuary. So your money will go towards that, and you're going to have an amazing time. Please come. You can see Edgar or Johnny for tickets ahead of time, and I think they do want us to purchase tickets ahead of time. I don't have a solution for contact this morning, but by next Sunday, you better believe I will, so that you can reach out to them. And then also, I think tickets will also be at the door. So if you don't buy tickets ahead of time, you can still buy tickets at the door, but we would love if you bought tickets ahead of time. Okay, moving on to our care kits. This is wonderful, y'all. If you are able to scan this code, please do. This is a list of items that we are collecting in order to organize and create care kits for homeless, unhoused neighbors. in Long Beach. This is going to be an after-church event on April 27th from 12 to 1. You can start bringing things to donate next week. You can keep them with you and bring them with you on the 27th. Is Brian here? Brian, do you want to say anything about this? Come on up.
Thank you. So this is an offshoot of the small group that we've been having since January. And this is a natural production of what we wanted to do. My wife and I have been regularly doing this, and we've been hearing that other people in the group and other people in the church do this on a regular basis. So we thought, well, it would be fun to do it together. The reason I came up, you said it great, but we're rethinking the date because it sounds like there's a lot of things going on that Sunday. So there's nothing sacred about the 27th for this. And it might actually give us more time to collect things. So what we're thinking is forget the date. It'll be TBD when we get the sheet filled out, so that we can. The goal is to create 100 care kits for us as a community to share. If we can do more, that'd be great. But it's already very expensive. Like, it adds up fast. So TBD on the date. But do scan the code, fill it out. If you don't understand, you can probably contact Jane, and she can give you my contact info, and I can explain the sheet a little bit. But it should be self-explanatory. But anyway, that's it.
Thank you so much. Rarely tech is self-explanatory to me. So if you look at that sheet, do not feel embarrassed to reach out, because I'm in it with you, and we'll work through it together. Okay, wonderful. And then for next Sunday, y'all, please, I know this kind of sounds like an echo of what you've been hearing for a while, but please bring flowers. We are going to decorate the cross for Easter Sunday. And so please bring cut flowers. So that we can do that together. It's one of the traditions that we love here at LBCF, is decorating the cross together with flowers on Easter morning. Next we have, this is fantastic. So yesterday we had members of the community who showed up for the New Hope Grief family dinner. We had Lindsay and Lisa. We had Tina. Tina, you are everywhere all the time. Do you have, like, is there a wrinkle in time? Is it a portal? How do you do it? Okay, sorry. Ian and John all went to serve dinner, to bring and serve dinner. We provided the dinner at New Hope Grief, and what I hear is that it was a tremendous success. So thank you for doing that, and thank you, LBCF, for supporting that really important ministry, helping people who are grieving to connect, heal, and build community together. All right, and then we have, I'm going to call Danny up, Pastor Danny, for our next set of announcements.
Thanks, Jana. So we do have a lot of announcements today, and I was thinking if I can get a little bit off tangent, Jana. I know that I grew up in a church where we hated announcements because it was all about the teaching of the word, and it was all about singing praise. And if you're like me and the way you grew up, that's what church was about. But what I love about this church is that's not what we're all about. We're about community. We're about getting involved with one another's lives. We're about serving, all over the place. And that's why announcements are so important. We're not just trying to get through it to get to the most important part. The announcements is the important part. Inviting you into these different things, leaning into all the ways God is working through our community, that's what is so important. And so as we go through all these announcements, I pray that you would see it maybe in that light, that, all these things are just all the wonderful things that makes us who we are. And so one of the other important things that we're going to do is we get to host the Q Christian Fellowship Parent Summit that happens every year since 2018. And this year, it's for the first time ever in the West Coast, and it'll be here at our church, May 2 through 4. Q Christian Fellowship is an LGBTQ plus organization that has been around for quite a while, trying to help conservative spaces learn how to accept who they are or learn how to love their family members well. And the Parent Summit has been in existence for that, trying to help parents who have children who have come out, regardless of whatever age their child is. And this year, we actually have a pretty phenomenal group of speakers. Miles Markham is a well-sought-out speaker. He's the director of development at Trans Lifeline. The other person we have is Micah Melody Tabernal, who's the director of Transmission Ministry Collective. Then another person is Ken Fong, who is really well-known Asian American podcaster and professor at Fuller Seminary. He'll be coming and speaking. Hannah and Jeremy are also part of the panel, our very own Hannah and Jeremy. And so, and there's so many more people, but we ask that you would, if you're a parent or if you know somebody, or not even a parent, if you're a guardian or a family member that just wants to, or an ally that just wants to learn how to love, and just be on the journey, you're more than welcome. But please get the word out. The other thing I want to say about this is we are looking for volunteers. We're, for that weekend, rearranging all the chairs and putting round tables in here. On Friday night, churches that usually host this do a little welcome packet for the people coming in from all the sorts of different places. If anyone wants to help put together a welcome packet, like baked cookies or something like that, I would love to connect with you. But please come and see me. It's going to be a phenomenal time. And then the conference is actually going to join our worship service that morning on May 4. So it'll be a really good time. But the other announcement I want to make is the Lent Giving campaign. We don't have a slide for that. But as you know, David Palmer shared a few weeks ago about Speak Up for the Poor, just the amazing things they're doing for the girls in Bangladesh, trying to get them education, bring them into a way that they can support themselves. Next week, we are going to be taking a special offering for that, and so we'll have buckets, during communion, and you could bring your cash, or you can give through the Church Center app. And so we invite you to continue to continue thinking about how much you'd like to give towards that. And if you have any questions, David Palmer is here with us this morning. And Jane asked me just also to just remind us as a church that we are a giving community. And we are all about trying to figure out how we can serve one another. And so if you consider this place your home, we ask that you would consider giving financially. And if you can't give financially, give of your time, your talents, your energies. However you can give, it's this thing that we all collectively do together. And so we are so grateful for that. And I know it's been a while since we've given a financial update. We'll be having an elders meeting today, and we'll make sure that we give an update soon on where we're at as a church. Thanks.
Whoops. That's okay. Thank you, Danny. I tried to scan the code that was there for on that slide, and I could not. I think it's too small on the slide. However, if you are interested in attending that conference and you want to use that QR code, on the bulletin board by the doors in the children's hallway, you can scan the QR code there. Please do. And then just to clarify, if you want to volunteer to help with that event, please see Danny, or you could email lbcf@lbcf.org. So those are two different threads. So QR code to sign up for the event by the doors. To sign up for volunteering, reach out to Danny, or lbcf@lbcf.org. Yes. Yes. I agree. It's been a long announcement series. Bless you. Okay, and we are getting here to the end, guys. So our prayer for the city today is CHIRLA, which is the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, LA. I'm going to say it again, the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, LA, which I would imagine this is an organization that has probably had such an influx of requests for assistance and help right now. I would not be surprised if they felt very overwhelmed in this moment. So we are going to pray for them. If you will pray with me, bow your heads, if it's your tradition to do so. God, we are living in times filled with change. Many of us are afraid. Many of our immigrant brothers and sisters and siblings are afraid. We speak your provision. We speak your power. We speak your love. We speak your compassion over this population of vulnerable people. And we speak your provision and your care and your love over the hands and the hearts of the people who work at Coalition for Humane Immigrants' Rights in Los Angeles. We speak the strength that they need in their minds and their hearts and their hands. We speak the provision, the resources that they need to help, to cover these gaps, to cover the influx of need. We speak that your heart be their heart, that your comfort be with them and with the people that they are serving. And God, whatever words have not been included in this prayer, I know that your heart knows what the words are. I know that you know what the needs are, and I speak that need and those words and that heart into this prayer, that everything be covered, and I speak that in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, you guys, now we are moving into our time of greeting, and I do have a question for you this morning. Dushka. Oh, my heart just leapt. Who was the best flower girl in the whole world? That's right. Okay, so this is a really important question, and if it creates any schisms among neighbors or family, I apologize. It's an important question. Are marshmallow peeps a delicious candy or a food crime? Please discuss this amongst yourselves during our greeting time.
Oh man, this is awesome. The countdown already happened, and I missed it. And I was prompted to get going, which always happens. I feel like, some people would think that I'm an extrovert, 99%, but there's a part of me that's like very introverted. And during this time, I question whether or not I want to connect sometimes. And yet, every time it goes like that, we just want to talk and hang out, and it's great. Good morning, Long Beach Christian Fellowship, LBCF. Good morning, friends and homies and family. My name is Alvia. We've never met. I'd love to meet you. Thank you. That's very nice of you guys. And I say, and I'm also I'm one of the elders here at LBCF, and so it's a joy to teach. And kind of represent the elder board here. Well, why don't we jump in now? Today, every week before our gathering, there's a team of just kind of whoever stumbles into the door, a team of people here that just pray. We pray for the plan for the day, pray for the ministry that's going to happen, and movement of the Spirit. And this morning, if I can shout you out, Gabby, I didn't ask for permission on this one. But Gabby began to pray for us, and she repeated a couple times, Jesus, save our nation. Jesus, save our nation. And I felt like it was so perfectly directed towards the story that we're going to examine today in Scripture. And so just for a minute, just to get us started, I would like for you to consider where you feel like, where do you desire to see saving? Not in your bank accounts. What I mean is, if you were to pray, Jesus, save our nation, or save me from this, what comes to mind for you? And furthermore, what would that saving look like? This week, as I prepared for this talk, I was just reminded, I was like, man, there's so many versions of Jesus out there. There's so many different, people just arrive at conclusions, especially from conclusions that are completely contrary to the conclusions that I've arrived to. And what we do and how we learn our personal Jesus is we hear teachings like this or teachings along the way, and some of them land in those moments. We take what sticks and we add to the picture of Jesus that we have in mind. For some, maybe you've experienced an experience of Jesus that was foundational, and that becomes a part of who you know Jesus to be. And we go through this process over years, and I would say today, for me, this Jesus is still being molded for me. My understanding of Jesus is still, it's like I'm still adding to that picture, and I wonder how the same would happen or move, the same sort of movement would happen for you today. Okay, so it is Lent. We're kind of coming into the close of Lent today, Lent season. We've been in a really awesome series, and also today really kicks off Holy Week, and it's the week that we observe the final days of Jesus leading up to his crucifixion in Jerusalem. And we call this Palm Sunday, as Jana shared. And if you check these palms out, they're massive. I brought one in, and I mean, they're huge. Just to kind of add to the picture, these are massive palms. Where do these come from? Is it Long Beach palm? Is it Long Beach palm? A Sinofsky palm? They're huge. I brought one in. I was like, do you want this? And it was like, wow, this is the size of my house. And so we're going to examine the story of the triumphal entry today. Thanks, Jason. We're gonna observe the story of triumphal entry, or some call it the atriumphal entry of Jesus into Jerusalem. But before we do, I want us to just consider the story of Matthew, or the Gospel of Matthew, the famous sermon that Jesus gave. And he starts off the sermon with like a series of, I don't know, we call them Beatitudes, but some scholars will call them like attitudes. And in a sense, if you put on these attitudes, it will bring for you goodness. And so he starts his sermon with the Beatitudes, and one of the Beatitudes is he talks about peacemaking. He says, if you are one to create peace, Or if you're a peacemaker, well, you would be considered or called a son or a daughter of God. And I want to start by asking that, how is that, what does that even mean? I started to wrestle with that, and just a few minutes down, further in his sermon, he talks about he talks about retaliation and revenge. And there's this really famous verse that we probably all have heard before. It's, hey, if somebody strikes you on your right cheek, we'll turn to that person your left cheek, your other cheek also. Now, I used to be the youth pastor here at LBCF, and one of my all-time, I have all these little highlights from youth ministry, and one of my highlights was we used to have this student named Ari that was in our high school group, and Ari would always report to us, like she had siblings, like the classic sibling rivalry, and she would report to us, man, like my siblings are brutal. They would they pinch me and they hit me and and so there's a day where I was like, you got to turn the other cheek. And so sure enough, a couple weeks later, Ari came into church one day and she basically hit me. She pushed my shoulder. I'm like, what's going on? She's like, you tricked me, man. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, what? Why'd you tell me that? And I'm like, what? He's like, man, my little sister, she pinched me, right, or hit me, and so I turned my other cheek, and so she just punched me in my other cheek, and look at my mark on my face, right? And she's like, look at me now. This didn't work out for me, and I just started dying laughing. And it was this dilemma of wow, she took what I said literally. She really did it. Her sister hit her on one side, she turned her cheek and just got clocked again. And now I'm having to explain hey, well, good job. You're a daughter of Jesus, and this is great. This passage is an interesting one. And over the years, I remember when I first became a Christian, I was like, man, this is radical. This is radical passivity, passive, nonviolent teaching. And one day I went to a church that was really popular. I loved the teachings at this church, and the teacher got up there and explained that, hey, you know what, this teaching, we've kind of been reading it wrong. In fact, when Jesus said, turn for them your other cheek. So when Jesus described somebody getting hit with their right cheek, well, number one, fun fact is that people didn't use their left hand because that's the hand that you would wipe with. And so if you picture somebody striking somebody on their right cheek, it means that person was backhanding the person on the right cheek with their right hand. And I remember listening to this going, oh my gosh, my whole perspective of the story completely changed. And so the teacher said, well, guys, this story isn't just about nonviolence. It's actually just about not allowing somebody to look down on you, to tell you that you're less than them, to tell you that to put you into a lower place. And I heard that story and I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to learn more about the Bible. And as I continued on in my walk with Jesus, and as I continued to read other passages of the Bible, I started to question that teaching. Why is it so easy for us to leave this idea of pure turn the other cheek? Why do we need an explanation for, hey, you know what? You do not need to be deemed as less than. And I wrestle with this. And to be honest, this is up for debate, right? But I will say that Jesus talked a whole lot about peace and about nonviolence and about turning the cheek, but even beyond, if somebody takes from you, that you continue to give to them. And so is it possible? What if it's true that Jesus fully meant turn the other cheek and potentially get hit again? What if it was just that? What was he recommending that for? What was the whole point of that? And in a day like today, in our world where there's wars happening and genocide happening and where children are losing their lives violently to violence, and we feel like we need to answer with more violence, what would it look like to literally take what Jesus said at face value? In Isaiah, we read Isaiah. Isaiah prophesied of the coming Messiah as the Prince of Peace. In Zechariah 9, I'm going to read some of this prophecy. Shout for joy, O daughter Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. A just Savior is he, humble and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. He shall banish the chariot from Ephraim. He'll get rid of all weapons of war. And the horse from Jerusalem. The warrior's bow will be banished. And he will proclaim peace to the nations. His dominion will be from sea to sea and from the river to the ends of the earth. And that leads us to our story today that we're going to read in Luke chapter 19, verse 28 through 44. And this is, again, known as the triumphal entry. This is why we call today Palm Sunday. And I'm going to go ahead and start. Let's go ahead and read. And so a couple of things about this. This actually is, as far as we know, Jesus' first time to Jerusalem. Okay, so we don't have a recording of another visit to Jerusalem from Jesus. And so what we're about to read marks this, in a sense, a year. It's the end of like a year travel towards Jerusalem. He's going through towns throughout Galilee, and there's reputation written that fills the context of this whole story. Reputation that Jesus holds of Jerusalem. So if you picture as Jesus approaches Jerusalem, he carries this idea and this understanding of what Jerusalem is about. He was in full knowledge that Jerusalem was the epicenter of the Jews. I mean, this is where the temple was. This is where the high priest had his palace. This is totally, he knew what he was walking into. And there's a reputation that Jerusalem had. And at the same time, in his travels leading up to Jerusalem, and also previously in his ministry, Jesus, he performed all kinds of miracles and healed and served people who were massively in need. And there was much reputation about who Jesus is. And so if you can picture the murmuring and the excitement of this idea, like, hey, that one dude, Jesus, who, remember, raised Lazarus from the dead? Yeah, he's walking this way. He's like approaching Jerusalem. It's like he's probably going to be here in a couple days. And there's this excitement that was growing. And let's join in the story here. So as Jesus went towards Jerusalem, walking ahead of his disciples, verse 29, as he came to the towns of Bethphage, and apparently it's pronounced Bethphage, but I just can't say that without laughing. So I'll just say Bethphage, but Bethphage. Okay, he came to the towns of Bethphage, Bethphage, and Bethany on the Mount of Olives. So these two towns that are kind of on the outskirts of Jerusalem. And he sent two disciples ahead. Verse 30, go into that village over there. And he told them, as you enter it, you'll see a young donkey tied there that no one has ever ridden. And so this is, I think the no one has ever ridden maybe is a nod to the fact, like this idea of like purity, or this idea of like, hey, this is untouched grounds, or this is untouched back of a donkey. But really what I read is that it's just a really young donkey, a colt. And you'll see a young donkey tied there that no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks, why are you untying that donkey? Just say, the Lord needs it. You know, I've always read this story, and I've always thought this was like miracle number one in the story. It's like, dude, how did he know there's this donkey down the corner? He just sees all things. But it's quite possible that his reputation was just that large. That people just knew that if they see the crew that's been traveling towards Jerusalem, and you're talking about the Lord, they would know. It's almost like, I was trying to think, like if somebody walked to my house and knocked on my door and said, hey, dude, I need to borrow your car, your Prius, just for the day, real quick. And I'm like, well, why do you need to borrow it? Well, Michelle Obama just had a flat tire. She's trying to get somewhere. And I would be like, oh, okay, like, sure. And Michelle Obama, she might not be my hero, but who can I think of, right? Who's that person for you? But it's kind of like that he had such a reputation that they were able to go up to somebody and say, hey, I need to use your donkey. And it's quite possible this was the connection that Jesus already had made at some point. So he says, go into that village over there, take the donkey and tie it, bring it here. And if anyone asks, tell him the Lord needs it. So they went, found the colt, just as Jesus had said, and sure enough, They were untying it, and the owner asked them, "Why are you untying this donkey?" And so they answered, "The Lord needs it." So they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their garments over it for him to ride on. And as he rode along, the crowd spread out their garments on the road ahead of him. And when he reached the place where the road started down the Mount of Olives, all of his followers began to shout and sing as they walked along, praising God for all the wonderful miracles they had seen. This passage appears in all four Gospels, this story of Jesus arriving to Jerusalem. And this is the one passage, or this one Gospel, that doesn't actually highlight the palms. And there's a reason why I wanted to read from this passage, from Luke, and it's because Luke highlights the word king and peace, and we're going to go into that in a little bit. However, as it says here in some of the other, a couple of the other Gospels, that they were laying down their garments. They said garments and palms in a couple of the other Gospels. And it's this idea of victory, proclaiming a victory, perhaps beforehand, or a future victory for a king. And so it's this idea that when a king or a rebel leader arrives somewhere, and if there is a potential for a battle or a changing of order or something, that person's followers were going to represent a certain way. And in this case, they decided, we're going to lay down our cloaks, we're going to lay down palm branches, and to proclaim sort of this triumph or this victory. And it's an interesting scene. It's an interesting scene. One commentary that I read said that the cloaks that they laid down was also, it was known as a prayer shawls, and it's a sign of humility that they're laying down their prayer shawls onto the road. But nevertheless, here comes Jesus on this donkey. I also want to note something about the donkey. This is a historical image. In the Old Testament, there are kings who, if they were to ride into a town to declare war, there was a certain way you did that. It was on a horse. That was the idea. But if you were going to announce peace or announce maybe the end of a war, you're going to do that on a donkey. And in this case, Jesus did it on a young donkey, a colt, who's never had a rider before. And so he cruises into town, and his followers start to lay down garments on the ground. And it's just this whole scene. It's almost awkward. It's like they're screaming out victory, and they're saying, yes, this is our leader. This is him. He's arrived. Yet he's on this donkey, and they're kind of like, what? Why is he making this sign of humility, this sign of peace? And so as he reached the place where, verse 37, where the road started down the Mount of Olives, all of his followers began to shout. And they shouted and they sang as they walked along, praising God for all the miracles they had seen. And this is what they were saying. Blessings on the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Luke is the only gospel that says the word king. Blessings on the King who comes in the name of the Lord, and peace in heaven and glory in the highest. Well, the response, the Pharisees that were listening, they went to Jesus and they said, Jesus, you got to rebuke your followers here, okay? They're talking about the fact that you're a king, but even more so, they're talking about peace in heaven. Like, you got to stop them from saying such things. And Jesus then replies and he says, if they kept quiet, the stones along the road would burst into cheers. And I think this is the statement about the stones. I think it's a statement that the kingdom of heaven has been alive and well this whole time. There is much noise and much action happening in the kingdom of heaven that is along the lines of peace. And although we can't see it, if somehow we slow down and we pause, or somehow we can focus in on it, maybe we can see it and notice that the stones are even crying out for peace. I think it's so unique that the Pharisees were I remember the story as I started to prepare, and I remembered, the Pharisees tried to stop him from screaming out. But what I didn't capture is that the Pharisees are telling him to stop talking about peace. Stop talking about peace. And so we continue on, verse 41. But as he came closer to Jerusalem and saw the city ahead, Jesus began to weep. How I wish today that you of all people, would understand the way to peace. And so again, if you could picture Jesus walking in and laying his eyes on Jerusalem for the first time, and he's seeing people, and he speaks up. The very next thing after he talks about the stones crying out for peace, he says, only if you of all people would know and understand the way to peace. And then he continues to say, but now it's too late, and peace is hidden from your eyes. Before long, your enemies will build ramparts against your walls and encircle you and close in on you from every side. They will crush you into the ground and your children with you, and your enemies will not leave a single stone in place. Jesus' world was riddled with war. This is the same area that's in war today, Palestine. What Jesus is speaking to here, in a sense, he's prophesying about the coming war, coming Jewish-Roman wars that were going to happen, in which thousands and thousands of people ended up dying. And this is probably just about 60 years after Jesus spoke this. And so if you can picture Jesus, and in the most human way, he's cruising in on this donkey. He turns the corner. People are shouting, and they're excited to see him because they've seen him do certain types of miracles, certain types of things. And he sees the people screaming, and then he also sees the Pharisees, which were just one group, one sect of Jews that lived in Jerusalem at the time. And they're going, stop letting them say this stuff. And he sees them, and he goes, well, guys, they're speaking about peace, but the thing is the rocks are also, all of nature, every piece of matter, everything in existence also screams of this peace. And in fact, I'm laying my eyes on you, Jerusalem, right now, and I'm seeing that y'all don't know the way to peace. And so then he weeps and he cries. And I also think that Jesus' heart is broken because he knows of all the loss that's probably going to happen soon after. I want to go back to that question of, Jesus, will you save our nation? How will you save it? In all the ways that I've need saving. I'll tell you what, I was talking to my wife, and this sermon I've wrestled with because, y'all, I'm not a very peaceful person. In fact, there are conversations that I've had. I told my wife, Allie asked, hey, what are you going to talk about? And I was like, well, nonviolence. And she's like, you're not a pacifist. And I was like, well, I think I am. She's like, no, you want to buy a gun. You really want to buy a gun, And I've had conversations with her family at the dinner table, and her family are what I believe are true Portland pacifists, where I literally was like, guys, if somebody intrudes on you and has a gun and they're going to hurt you and your kids, what are you going to do? And they just be like, they literally said, we just look at each other and say, I guess it's our time. And I was like, wow, no way. No way. I need to get a gun. And that's the reality is my wife, she was like, Elvia, you're not a pacifist. And this idea, or let me just say the word that Luke records peace, the word for peace here appears in the New Testament 91 times. And it's the same word that we talk about when we say Prince of Peace. If you were to be a peacemaker, that you would be called a son, daughter, child of God. It's the word that Jesus repeatedly repeats throughout his ministry, and then also at the end here says, hey, do you know, I wish you guys knew the way to peace. And this word, this is Irene, which I know Irene's. And so it's like, oh, I know what your name means now. But this word, it reflects peace at the level, and the political level that we desire to see peace. It reflects peace within our communities. It also reflects internal peace also. And even further, it reflects harmony, this idea of living in oneness with other people. And so what is this peace that the kingdom of heaven is illustrated by? Well, I'll tell you what, I've been pulled over in my life. I think the number is like 19 times. And I can look it up. I should have looked it up, but I made a Facebook post years ago after I got pulled over by the same police officer twice. And my story is, I think, probably a mild story compared to a lot of maybe other people I know. But one thing I do know is that getting pulled over is a very anxious experience for me, and it's probably for everybody, but for me especially. I was a youth pastor in Irvine for a season, and during that season, after a youth group, one night I packed up the room, closed the church up, and then I got in my car, and I drove out of the church, and then a police officer pulled me over. And so he ended up running my plates, looking at my background, and then he says, "Hey, I pulled you over because your license plate light is dim." And I said, "Okay, well, thank you for letting me know." And he let me go. Well, sure enough, 2 weeks later, ended youth group, 9 o'clock, probably left church around 10 o'clock, got my car, started driving home, and I got pulled over again. It was the same police officer. And this police officer, he pulls up, and he ran my record, the same thing. And I said, "Hey, sir, like, you pulled me over a couple weeks ago. You know that I have no record. You know I'm a pastor of the church down the street. Yet why do you keep pulling me over?" And he laughs. He's like, "Oh, like, I can't believe you remember that." And he's like, "It's probably because you're driving around late at night." And I remember the frustration that rose up in me. This idea that, wow, like, this is enough to be pulled over, right? Like, I'm driving around late at night. And somehow I swallowed my anger in that moment. And I just said, "Okay, well, thank you." And then he let me go. Well, the pastor at the church at the time that I worked at, she's amazing. And she, Monday morning, staff meeting, she's like, "How you doing?" I was like, "I'm a little frustrated. I got pulled over last night." and I was like, "It's the same time, the same officer." And she's like, "What happened?" And next thing you know, somehow she got the chief of police in my office. And I'm sitting like the next day in my office with the chief of police. And we had a very wonderful conversation. In fact, the chief of police said, "Look, the guy was active policing. This is protocol. This is how we kind of keep the city safe." And I said, active police isn't just looking for somebody with an old car or with dark skin and pulling them over. It's actually, it's like actively policing, And we had a great conversation, and he ended up inviting me to speak to his police officers for the briefing. He's like, "Come out to the briefing. Would you share your experience with our people?" And I never did. That was my opportunity. I never did. But long story short, now 10 years later, my career has kind of formed into this, like, I do a lot of public speaking in schools to teens. And my boss came to me one day and said, "Hey, this year I want you to link up with PD, and you're going to give your talks with a police officer. In fact, here's his card, here's your buddy." And next thing you know, like, I had to prepare for a year of working very closely with the police department. And I wrestled during that season. I had a lot of tension, a lot of past anxieties. I've been pulled over about 19 times, and I've never received a traffic ticket. This is after George Floyd. And in the police world, you wear Blue Lives Matter flags because it represents your people. But for me, I see Blue Lives Matter flags on cars, and I think twice. I think a little bit. Well, luckily, we had a few months to prepare for presenting together, this police officer and I. And the experience went completely differently than I thought. We started eating food together. And at first, it was awkward and quiet. I didn't want to talk. And eventually, well, tell me about your family, right? We started sharing stories about our families and our hobbies and past punk or ska bands we used to listen to. Then I started riding around in his car, showed me what certain buttons do. Next thing you know, I'm like, wow, this is like my friend. This is kind of crazy. And then we had the hard conversations too. He was so gracious with me. to have conversations about, man, you know what, like I have a lot of anger. Like since I was a kid, one of our speeches about riots. And he stands up in our speech, in our talk, and he talks about being discriminated against. Now he's white. And he says, I remember the George Floyd riots, and I had to go work, and I had bricks thrown at me. People spit on me, threw food on me. And it made me consider my whole career. I'd worked 15 years to work to this point in my career, and I was about to quit. And my family said, please don't quit. And then I also tell a story about experiencing the LA riots. I'm half Korean, and I lived in Koreatown during the LA riots. And if you know anything about the LA riots, remember, Koreatown was a hot spot for the LA riots. And I remember seeing looters, smoke rising up from the Blockbuster video that we shot from, all the windows being bashed in. And I tell my side of the story of a riot. And the hard part about the riot were two things. One, it was my introduction. I was probably 6 or 7 years old, 6 years old, to racism, systemic racism. All this, you're watching the news, you're like, all this because, wow, they don't really like people like me. And then the second thing is, it was because of the LA riots. My mother and I, she didn't feel safe no longer to live in LA. And so she asked my dad to take us out of LA, and they put me in the back row of the car, and they covered me in a thick blanket, and they said, stay down until we are out safe. I mean, that's how violent it was during the LA riots. And I don't have any memories going back to that home. That was the last time that I saw my first home in Koreatown. So anyways, I have told this story alongside my fellow police officer, my buddy, now is one of my close colleagues. And we've told this story so many times. I mean, now about 100 times to about 10,000 students or more. And the last time we presented, there was a substitute teacher there. Now, we know all the faculty at the schools that we teach at. There's a substitute teacher. It was a black woman. And I could see her just fuming during the stories that we were telling. My buddy told his story. I told my story, and I see her just pacing in the back of the room. And at the end of the first delivery of the message, she came up and said, hey, officer, I need a word with you. I need a word with you. She didn't come to me about my story. And so my friend, he's so great. She's like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I'd love to sit down and talk with you. And sure enough, the conversation went relatively well. But in the hours that led up to that conversation, both him and I were sweating, and especially him. And there's a point, and even though this guy's my friend, there's a point of me that had a little bit of joy in my heart because it was like, kind of feel what it's like to be profiled, you know? And I cry because that's the place where nonviolence lives in my heart, is this very hidden, secret place. I've never been in a fist fight in my life. I'm not a violent person, but my mind can be violent. And even the most passive people I know, as the news has intensified over the last few years, and especially this year, I've seen them also desire violence, because when we're desperate, sometimes that's the answer we can arrive to. And so as we prayed this morning, we started praying repeatedly, Jesus, save our nation. Save our nation. The question that came into mind is, man, I wonder if that saving just looks completely different than I think. What does Jesus' path of peace look like, and do I know it? And I would say, and I want to admit to you guys that I feel like I don't fully know it, but maybe in small little inklings I'm starting to get it. And my prayer is that as a community, Long Beach Christian Fellowship, that we would continue to be pulled into a way of peace that is completely staggering to this world. And so this idea of eye for an eye or turning the other cheek, it's too difficult. It doesn't make any sense when you're really when Ari was in that moment where her sibling was about to punch her on her other cheek, right? Man, I wanted to be like, I did tell her, I was like, don't do that again. Don't turn your cheek again. because it's literally that difficult. And so for those who were living in disparity in Jerusalem at the time, who desperately needed saving, who needed saving from Rome, who needed saving from the rich, the Sadducees, which are the rich aristocrats that ran the temple and charged charge a high price to make temple sacrifices, so that it made it difficult for the poor to make temple sacrifices. Or if you're the Pharisees and you're like, man, I need saving from the Sadducees. I need saving because, look, I feel like we are caught in the middle here, and we need somebody, a Messiah, to come in and rescue us from Rome and from those rich people over there. And Jesus comes walking right in the midst. And there were other sects too. There were people who lived in the hills. There were Jewish groups, tribes that would just hide in the hills, and as Roman soldiers walked into town, they would attack them. And all these people are standing around Jesus, and they all actually orchestrated his death together. They all were for it. And he comes in and he says, guys, like, I am a king. I am a king, but my kingdom looks completely different. Is it possible that Jesus has been calling us to a way of peace? And he's been doing it since day one, since the beginning of this idea of peacemaking. There are three motions that are described in this passage. There's shouting of praise. And that I can identify with. There's so many moments where I can remember myself just screaming praises for the goodness that Jesus is. And then there's also quiet from Jesus sitting on a donkey. And he even is promoting more quiet when he talks about the rocks crying out. And with these two sort of things, these two like tangible like noise, things of noise, I feel like I'm in the middle. I'm caught myself in the middle here. I'm caught in the middle, and I think I'm probably going to spend many years in the middle. However, the hill, that funny word Bethphage literally means the house of unripened fig. Unripened fig. And he enters into this town, and it's almost like this prophetic coincidence that he would enter in this town, and he sees towards Jerusalem, and he sees his disciples, and they're shouting, and they're shouting praises, they're shouting save us, they're shouting triumph, Hosanna, all these different things, and they're doing it in this place called House of Unripened Fig. And I feel like I'm an unripened fig. It's like I get it. I've got much to shout and praise God about. And at the same time, I think Jesus has much that he wants me to hone into and listen to. And whether it might be the rocks, or it might just be himself, Jesus himself. Meditation and solitude has been a very helpful process for me. There is an author here, and we're not going to have time to necessarily read this whole passage, but if we go to the next slide here, the next one. Felicia Murrell, she has this article called Liminal Space, and I encourage you to read it. It's a fantastic short read. And she's African American, and she talks about this anger that she holds, right? And this need for violence also, just being a young black woman. And it extends throughout the history. She carries with her the history of her ancestors. And then she talks about liminal space. Liminal space is just that space of in-between. The space of processing, or where change can happen, where conversion can happen within us. And for me, in this recent season, meditation and solitude has been that space for me. Nonviolence does not make sense to me until I pause and silence myself, and I just breathe and I listen, and I start to notice myself. And so I want to close with a short meditation. I'll lead us into it, and we'll watch a video. But if we can go to the previous slide, because I think this is such a great quote from Henry Nouwen. Solitude is a place of conversion, the place where the old self dies and the new self is born, the place where the emergence of the new man and the new woman occurs. Do you find solitude in your life today? I'll tell you what, I've got 2 toddlers, or I have an infant and a toddler, and it's really difficult to find solitude. But I do believe it's possible. And so somehow I've been finding moments of solitude on the 405 in traffic, in the hour of quiet after my kids go to bed and before I go to bed, or in the shower. And solitude is totally possible, and I feel like it's more of a posture than it is literally driving up a mountain. Actually, I just remembered, one day I told Allie, I was like, Allie, I got to go on a solitude trip. I got to hear from God. I need to leave for a few days. And she was like, okay. And so then I drove all the way up to the Eastern Sierra, all the way up to 10,000 feet, locked my car, put my backpack on, and started hiking up the mountain. I got to the top of this mountain, and I was like, all right, God, I'm here. I'm here. And God, literally, the thought that came into my mind was this conviction, and Jesus was saying, I was with you way back down the mountain and in Long Beach, right? And so, like, why did you drive all this way? But for me, solitude has been that. Okay, so mindfulness and meditation is something that I've always thought was kind of weird. And the more I've been allowed myself to be really goofy and playful, I've allowed myself to try it. And then I've noticed, wow, like, this is actually pretty good. One of the starting points for me was a breathing exercise by a breath guru named Wim Hof. Some of you guys may have heard of Wim Hof. And you can YouTube Wim Hof breathing technique. And that, even though it's not spiritual, has been an incredibly spiritual activity for me. But will you guys join me in a quick meditation? Yeah? All right. Whew. All right. You're going to need your eyes open because we're going to play a video here in a second. But what I would like for you to do is just like soften your gaze forward, kind of try to go inward a little bit. And let's take a deep breath. Deep breath in. And a deep breath out. Deep breath in. And out. And let's do that 2 more times. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. Inhale. And exhale. And this time on your inhale, I want you to hold your breath. Just inhale. Let's hold for 15 seconds. And exhale. And breathe in again. And exhale. And as you return your breathing to a normal pattern of breathing, I want you to notice the socks on your feet. Some of you guys are probably wiggling your toes. I want you to point your attention a little further up your body to your calves. See if you can notice your calves and even your thighs. Is there tightness there? Make sure you're continuing to breathe. Point your attention to your abdomen. And then now to your chest. And as you breathe, maybe you're noticing your chest rising and falling. See if you can hear your heartbeat. If you could feel it. Let's point your attention to your jaws. See if you can notice the back of your eyeballs. Is there tension there? If there is tension, as you breathe, go ahead and release that tightness. Let's move back to your shoulders. If there's tightness there, go ahead and release that. And if you can point your gaze to the screen, let's continue in this meditative state. I was driving down Pine Street last night, just cruising with my windows open, and there were people everywhere. Grand Prix is happening, and it was Saturday night on Pine Street. And I felt really led to drive down Pine Street, and I didn't know why. I wanted to avoid the traffic, and I did, and I looked around, and a thought occurred to me that, man, this multitude of people, if every single person walking around Pine Street at the time, the bars, crossing the street, racing over to hotels, if they grasped communion, oneness, if they totally embrace this idea of letting go of an us-them mentality, what would this world look like? And I think we've seen renditions of it when on the March on Washington, led by Martin Luther King. I mean, there's renditions of this. But guys, as a community, I think that nonviolence can be very, very powerful. And I think, and so in a moment we're going to jump into communion. But communion each week is something that we engage with as a practice. It's a practice of not just eating a meal together, but it's also a practice of reminding ourselves of the love of Christ. But it's also a practice of communion, of joining in union, which literally is a translation of peace, of Irene. It's this idea of harmony, living in harmony. And I think that in harmony in the practice of communion, one thing that I feel pretty sure about is that this is part of the way to peace on earth, part of the way to the kingdom of heaven being established here. So I'm going to close in prayer as we start. Jesus, thank you for our community. Each week we come together, and I get to hang with our community. I'm just reminded of like how awesome people are. We live in a community that challenges me to love even further. And I pray that together that you would create some sort of unified, continued effort to go deeper in your love, deeper in your peace. Help us to teach one another that. And I pray that you be fully present in and through us as we come together, and especially as we practice communion right now. Amen.
Do you feel the world is broken? Do you feel the shadows deepen? We do. Do you know that all the dark won't stop the light from getting through? We do. Do you wish that we could see it all made new? We do. Is all creation groaning? Is a new creation coming? And is the glory of the Lord to be the light within our midst? And is it good that we remind ourselves of this? Is anyone worthy? Is anyone whole? Is anyone able to break the seal and open the scroll? The Lion of Judah, who conquered the grave. He is David's root and the Lamb who died to ransom the slave. Is he worthy? Is he worthy of all blessing and honor and glory? Is he worthy of this? He Does the Father truly love us? He does. Does the Spirit move among us? He does. And does Jesus, our Messiah, hold forever those he loves? He does. Does our God intend to dwell again with us? He does. Is anyone worthy? Is anyone whole?
so much. You know, it's complicated. The story he shared, it's really hard. It's hard to figure out what love looks like. And I know one of the things you brought up is solitude, and I do solitude as much as I can. Mondays are my day off. And as Abby knows, I go to the beach pretty regularly. When I can, I'll drive to Seal Beach. And I've been there the past few Mondays. And there's something about the beach where I just feel the presence of God. That's my spot. I go on the pier. I walk around and I just feel rejuvenated. And I walk around Main Street there at Seal Beach. But there was a store that popped up a few months ago that I always try to skip over because it's a very political store. And I just I can't go in that store. I don't even want to look at it. But for some reason last month, I was walking on Main Street and I decided to walk in. And I saw just so much stuff I had never seen before. Stuff that was just so different. Things about race, things about women, things about LGBTQ people that honestly felt very disturbing. But I decided to just stay in there. And before I left the space, I made it a point to go back to the front where the woman in the cash register was. And I said hello, and I smiled. And that's all I could offer. That's all I could offer. In a space surrounded by so much hardness and complication, all I could offer was to remember that this woman is beloved. And I don't know what the next few Mondays will look like for me. But there's something about knowing that people shouldn't be treated like a project. I'm not there to save anybody. But can I love just because? Can we love just because? Because that's what Jesus, I think, calls us to do. To love just because. And I don't pretend to know what that looks like either, Alvia. It's complicated. I love how you guys around Allie's table, there's differences. We all walk a different life, and I don't want anyone to do what I did. Don't think I'm a pattern to live by. But let's all try to figure out what love looks like, what it means to follow Christ. Because at the end of the day, I think Jesus wants us all to see each other as human. Because God created us all. And so let's rise and say the benediction together. As you leave this place, may you find God in every messy middle. May you know that the world is bigger than two sides. May you trust that you are made in the image of God. And therefore you contain multitudes, so that you may move through this world with an open heart, the curious mind, and with the confidence that you do not go alone. God is with you in the mountains, in the valleys, and everywhere in between. Believe that good news and go in peace. Go in peace. Thank you.